Let's get started with creating the single crochet. Now, single crochet is one of the first stitches you learn when you start doing crochet after the chain stitch. So if you need more instruction on how to create a slip knot or how to do a chain stitch, I have a whole video on just those two. So I encourage you to check those out. Now I'm going to create a swatch of single crochet stitches, and I want my swatch to be 20 stitches wide. So I am going to chain 20 now. Okay, so I've finished my 20 chain stitches, which is the foundation of the swatch I'm going to create. Okay. Now when you look at your chain stitches, when you look at, these are the tops of the stitches where you can see little V's. The yarn comes together to form these little V's right here. Okay. That is the top of your chain stitch. Then if you turn it over, you have these little bumps that run along the middle of the back. Okay, so that is the back bump of your chain stitch. Okay. Now since I'm planning to do single crochet and I want my swatch to be 20 stitches wide, I actually need to make one additional chain stitch at the end. Okay, and maybe that doesn't quite make sense now if you're new to crochet, but once you start seeing us do more rows and how we turn our work, it'll make a little bit more sense then. So just trust me, if you're doing single crochets, add an extra stitch, an extra chain stitch to the end. Okay, so when we create our first stitch, we're actually going to skip this first chain. Okay, so you have our active loop on the hook, we have our first chain off the hook, and we are going to put our first stitch in this, the second chain from the hook. And I'm going to put it in the top loop of the V. Okay, when you're holding it flat towards you, it looks like the top loop, but when you're reading technical terms in like a pattern or something, they will call this the back loop. Okay, because remember, this is the top of your work if you hold it flat, and so the back loop is the loop that's away from you. Okay, so, and now to create a single crochet, I'm going to yarn over, pull that through the loop, so I now have 2 loops on my hook. Okay, and then I'm going to yarn over again and pull that through both loops that are on my hook, and that is my first single crochet stitch. And your first stitch will always look a little odd, and you kind of pull on the yarn of the chain. That's very normal. Don't worry about that right now. It'll kind of even itself out as you go. We're going to go on to the next stitch. I have my next chain right here, so I'm going to insert it into the top or back loop. Okay, I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. Okay, so I now have 2 single crochet stitches. Okay, I'll do one more slow and then I'm going to finish my foundation row. Okay, so I'm going to insert my hook into this back loop or top loop of the chain. I'm going to yarn over, pull through the loop. I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to pull through both of those loops. So I now only have 1 loop on my hook. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this foundation row, and when I get to the end, we'll show you how to do that last stitch and then how to turn your work and do your next row. Okay, so here I've got my first row of single crochet stitches. Okay. And I still need to do my last stitch in this last chain here, and you're going to work that just as you did every other stitch. So I insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through. So I have 2 loops on my hook. I yarn over and pull through both loops. And now, before we can continue on, we need to turn our work, okay? So at the end of the row, what you're going to do is you're going to chain one. So you're just going to yarn over and pull through. And that gives your work the height that you need so you can continue on to your next row of chain stitches. So to turn our work, all we do is we hold our hook in place and we take the work and we flip it over. You know, almost as if we're trying to turn a piece of paper over to look at the back. Exactly the same. Okay? And then to continue on and stitch our next row, first let's take a look at the row of stitches we've created. So along the top of our stitches, you have these same V's exactly like we saw in our foundation chain. But now the stitches have a little bit more height. The foundation chain, it kind of just ends right below the V and there's just that tiny little back bump. Because we did the single crochet, we have a little bit more height to that stitch. That's why we had to chain one before we turned our work to continue on, is to give ourselves that little bit of height to bring us up so we can continue on our work. Okay? So when we go to crochet, our next row, okay, this right here is our chain stitch. We're going to skip our chain stitch and go to our first actual stitch, or what was in our previous row, it was our last stitch. In this row, it is now the first stitch. Okay. We skip the chain and go into the first stitch. And what we are going to do this time, instead of going into just one loop, we are going to go underneath the entire V. You see how I've gone in and under the entire V. Okay. And then we do the exact same process though. So we're going to yarn over, pull that through. So we now again have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull it through. Okay. So I'm going to show it this time again. I'm going to show it from the side. I find I look more at the side of my work than I do the top. So showing it kind of from the front of the work, I guess. You can see these 2 kind of bars from where the stitches are. We're going to insert right between them. There's a hole, there's a little gap right between them. And that's where we're going to put our hook. And you can see when you look top down, it puts us underneath that V, underneath both sides of that V. Okay. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. Okay. Showing it again from the front of the work. We're going to go in between, underneath the V, in between the 2 posts of the stitch. Okay. So I'm under the V, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. Okay, and like before, I'm going to go ahead and finish this row, and then we'll show you how to turn your work one more time, okay? So there we go. I've finished my second row of stitches, and now it is time to turn my work. So just like I did the first time, I'm going to chain 1, and I'm just going to take my work, and I'm going to flip it like I'm turning a page or flipping over a piece of paper. Okay, so now my hook is again at the left side, and I can continue crocheting exactly as I did the first 2 rows. Okay, so we'll take another look before I get started on the row. Okay, right here is my chain stitch that I just made. That is not a stitch that I'm going to go into. That's just there to give me the height I need to bring my work up. It's what keeps everything nice and even. So I'm going to skip the chain and I'm going to go straight in to the first single crochet stitch. Okay. And I go under both loops of the V. I yarn over and pull through. So I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through again. Now I am going to go on and create an entire swatch. So it'll be a full square of single crochet stitches, just like this. So there it is, my finished square. Okay, it is 20 stitches wide and 22 rows tall. And if we want to measure it, you can see it is 5 inches wide and 5 inches tall. Okay, so to finish off my work, what I'm going to do, to snip my tail, and leave yourself a nice long tail. Okay, and you're just going to pull that through, all the way through. And then you're going to tighten it down. So I find it works best if I kind of pinch on top of the knot that I'm creating. So you tighten that down. And then you are going to take a nice wide tapestry needle. Okay, this has a wide eyelet and a blunt end, so well, might hurt a little if you poke yourself too hard, but it doesn't like draw blood or anything. Thread your yarn onto that. And then I'm just going to take my needle into my work a little bit. Just take it over several stitches, however much you want. Pull this through. And I find it best if I kind of pinch on where this loop is coming in through, and it keeps it from pulling my stitches too much and messing up my work. So I'm going to pinch on there, but I'll show you what's happening. So you can see the loop is going through. Okay. And then you're just going to do that a couple of times. I do it like 3 times maybe. You just go back. Come on out. And again, I kind of hold it right where it's going into the work, and it disappears in there. And then we're going to go back just one more time. I turn my work as I'm going because I'm obviously left-handed. So I kind of turn my work so that my hand is always on the left side of my work. So then once you get all your weaving in done, you're just going to take your scissors and trim this yarn off as close to your work as you can without cutting your work, of course. And if you feel like there are any, if you can see those there are a few little tiny frayed ends right there. You can just kind of give your work a little tug, and those will slip right inside, and you'll never even know they're there. And that makes your work nice and secure, and I've never had yarn come out when I've woven it in this way. And with your other tail, you do the exact same thing. And that is my completely finished single crochet swatch. I hope to see you back again next week when I do a tutorial for a double crochet. If you want to get notified when that video comes out, hit the subscribe button down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.